The camera slowly sweeps across a packed courtroom, its air thick with anticipation. The sound of whispers, the shuffle of feet, and the rustling of papers fill the space as the proceedings unfold. Every eye is trained on the witness stand where a young boy sits, his small body perched uncomfortably on the edge of the chair. His hands tremble slightly, fidgeting with the edges of his shirt as he glances nervously around the room. The judge, seated at the front with a solemn expression, watches intently, his gavel resting lightly in his hand, waiting for the next move. Lawyers on both sides present their cases with intensity, the arguments filled with sharp words and pointed accusations. But in this tense moment, it's the boy who holds the key to unraveling everything. A voiceover begins, the tone low and powerful, drawing the viewer in. In a moment of courage that no one saw coming, a child's voice cut through the lies and deception, bringing truth to light and shaking the very foundation of the courtroom. The words seem to hang in the air, their weight palpable. The music swells subtly in the background, tense and atmospheric, gradually rising in intensity as the drama of the moment builds. The camera lingers on the boy's face, his eyes wide with uncertainty, but beneath that uncertainty, a flicker of something stronger, a hint of resolve. As the scene continues to unfold, the camera zooms in on the boy, capturing his unease. The tension in the room is almost suffocating. The judge's eyes remain fixed on the boy, his expression stern but unreadable. The lawyers present their cases, their words flowing rapidly, and yet, in this room filled with legal professionals, it is the young boy's testimony that will ultimately decide the course of everything. The camera captures each subtle movement, the boy's nervous glance toward his mother, his fidgeting hands, the quick breaths he takes as the weight of the moment presses down upon him. He is caught between two worlds, the adult world of legal proceedings and the reality of his own emotions, confused and vulnerable. As the camera pulls back slightly, the stakes of the case are clear. This isn't just a simple legal matter. It's a life-altering moment for the boy and his family. The custody battle, already fraught with lies and manipulations, is now at a critical juncture. The boy's words could shift the balance, revealing the truth and exposing the falsehoods that have been carefully constructed. But no one expects a young child to be the one to bring everything to light. Everyone is waiting for the truth to emerge, but unsure of where it will come from. The judge's somber expression deepens as the weight of the decision presses on him. All eyes are on the boy now, but none of them expect what is about to happen. In this room filled with uncertainty, the truth hangs just out of reach, until a single voice breaks the silence, changing everything. The camera pans gently over the young boy sitting at the witness stand, his legs dangling off the edge of the chair, far too small for the weight of the moment. His face is drawn, his eyes darting nervously around the room, not quite understanding the gravity of the proceedings, but feeling its suffocating presence. His hands clutch his favorite toy, a stuffed animal, small enough to fit in the palm of his hand, offering him some comfort as the cold, impersonal world of the courtroom surrounds him. His fingers trace the toy's worn seams, the gentle motion betraying the deep unease within. Each small shift in his seat, the tiny twitches in his posture, and the way he holds his breath as the questions come at him signal his discomfort. He's just a child, yet he's been thrust into the middle of a storm of adult emotions, forced to navigate a world of lies, manipulations, and truth that's far beyond his years. Sitting across the room, the boy's mother watches him closely. Her posture is perfect, her expression composed, but the tension beneath the surface is palpable. She speaks with the kind of authority that only comes from being on the offensive in a high-stakes game. Her demeanor, although polished, reveals the layers of concern and calculation beneath. She's a woman who's used to being in control, her every word measured as she defends her claims. In the courtroom, she presents herself as a victim, pleading her case for custody, painting herself as the better parent, always careful with her words, but her actions reveal more than she intends. The camera catches the subtle shift in her gaze whenever her son looks her way, the unease in her expression when he's asked certain questions, as though she's trying to read his mind, or worse, hoping he won't reveal what she's worked so hard to conceal. The lie she is about to be caught in is a thread that has been carefully woven, but as the truth is set to come to light, she braces for its unraveling. On the other side of the courtroom, the boy's father stands quietly, observing the proceedings. His face is a mixture of exhaustion and hope, his hands folded neatly in front of him. He's not the one in the spotlight, yet his presence is as critical as anyone's in the room. He's been fighting for custody for a long time, a struggle that's deeply personal. His relationship with his son is the core of everything he holds dear, and he's determined to provide a stable, loving environment for him. The camera lingers on his face, capturing the weariness of a man who has fought many battles, but none as important as this one. When the boy's mother speaks, he listens intently, his expression unreadable, but the pain in his eyes is unmistakable. The emotional toll this case has taken on him is evident in his furrowed brow, and yet he knows the truth is coming, no matter how much he dreads it. The emotional stakes of the case are complicated, tangled in the deep, conflicting feelings of a family torn apart. The boy sits in the middle of it all, caught between two worlds. On one side is his mother, the person who has cared for him, raised him, and given him love. Yet there is something in her behavior that he cannot ignore. On the other side is his father, the man who has been absent for much of his life, but who is now fighting for his place in his son's world. The boy is torn between loyalty and truth, between love and justice. The weight of this internal conflict has been growing for weeks, perhaps months, with every interaction he has had with his parents. At school, his behavior has become erratic. He is quiet, withdrawn, and troubled, often staring off into space, lost in thoughts he cannot fully express. His actions outside the courtroom reveal a mind at odds with itself, a child trying to make sense of a situation that seems impossible to understand. The case at hand is a bitter custody battle, a fight for a child's future and a family's fractured legacy. The courtroom is a battlefield, and each side is armed with their own narrative of what is best for the boy. His mother's accusations paint the father in a light of neglect and irresponsibility, while his father counters with claims of stability and a better environment. But the boy, with his fresh innocence and unwavering sense of right and wrong, holds a truth that neither parent is prepared to face. As the case progresses, he becomes increasingly aware that something isn't right. His mother's story doesn't match the reality he has lived. It's a burden too heavy for him, a weight no child should have to carry, but it's a burden he can no longer ignore. The truth, buried deep within him, will soon emerge, changing everything. The courtroom is tense, heavy with the anticipation of what is to come. The sound of shuffling papers and the murmurs of the audience fill the space, creating a palpable sense of pressure. The judge's voice cuts through the quiet, asking questions, his tone professional yet firm as he listens intently to the arguments laid out before him. On one side, the lawyers present their evidence, their voices calm but with an edge of urgency as they frame their arguments, while the mother, calm and composed, takes her turn at the witness stand. Her testimony is met with rapt attention. She speaks with practiced ease, her words coming across with the weight of truth, or at least the illusion of it. Each word seems to settle in the room, painting a picture of a mother who has been wronged and a father unworthy of her son's love and care. The courtroom listens intently, the air thick with expectation as her claims unfold. She recounts events with precision, each detail carefully tailored to highlight her victimhood and her son's supposed need for protection from his father. It is an artful narrative, designed to cast doubt on the father's intentions and fortify her case. The audience remains silent, hanging on her every word, but beneath the surface, a storm is quietly brewing. The camera shifts to the young boy, who is sitting uncomfortably on the witness stand, his small form barely fitting into the oversized chair. His legs swing gently under the table, a stark contrast to the tension that seems to envelop the room. Sweat glistens on his forehead, a small bead of perspiration slowly trailing down his temple. His hands are clasped tightly around a toy, his fingers digging into the fabric as though trying to hold on to something real, something solid in the face of the growing discomfort. His eyes shift from his mother to the judge, then to the lawyers, his gaze flickering nervously. The weight of the moment bears down on him, and it's clear. This is not a place where children are meant to speak up. The pressure mounts, his unease becoming more visible with every passing second. As the mother continues, a small shift occurs in her narrative. Her words, once flowing with certainty, start to take on a quality of suspicion. There is a small pause, a hesitation in her delivery. Something in her story begins to unravel. She claims that the father has not been involved in their son's life, a statement that at first seems entirely plausible. The courtroom listens intently, but the boy's discomfort becomes increasingly apparent. His small shoulders tense, and his grip on his toy tightens. He shifts in his seat, his movements jerky as if something inside him is pushing him to speak, to stop the lie from continuing. The camera zooms in on his face. His brow furrows in confusion, then deepens into a clear discomfort as the weight of the lie becomes unbearable for him. His eyes dart to his mother, and for a fleeting moment, he looks as if he is ready to say something. His lips tremble, but the words are caught in his throat. And then, the moment comes. Without warning, the boy's voice cuts through the tension, sharp and unyielding. "Mommy is lying," he blurts out, his voice cracking under the weight of the accusation. The words seem to hang in the air, heavy with truth, shocking everyone in the room. The camera lingers on the boy's face. His wide eyes are filled with fear, but there is a clear determination behind them. He knows what he has just said, and there is no going back. His mother's expression falters, the carefully constructed facade she had maintained crumbling in an instant. The room falls silent, as if the air itself has been sucked from the space. Every eye is now fixed on the boy, whose simple declaration has shattered the illusion that had been carefully built. The judge's gaze narrows, a flicker of realization crossing his face. He leans forward slightly, his eyes never leaving the boy. The lawyers look at each other, their faces unreadable, but the magnitude of the moment is clear. The audience watches in stunned silence, the weight of the truth hanging in the air like a thunderclap. The boy's mother recoils, her face a mask of disbelief and fear. Her eyes search for a way to refute the boy's words, but there's no escape now. The truth is out in the open, and the courtroom is paralyzed by the revelation. The power of the boy's words, the courage of his simple declaration, has shifted the entire atmosphere, and nothing will ever be the same again. The courtroom is still, the tension palpable, as the young boy, his courage now fully summoned, is encouraged by the judge and his lawyer to speak. The boy's eyes flicker nervously, the weight of his words heavy upon him. His small chest rises and falls with shallow breaths as he tries to steady himself. The courtroom holds its collective breath, the moment suspended in time. His mother's eyes are wide with disbelief, her face pale, already knowing that the truth is coming to light. She stares at her son with a mixture of shock, anger, and the raw fear of being exposed. The boy takes a deep breath, his voice quiet at first, but gradually gaining strength. "Mommy said, Daddy never came to see me," he begins, his words slow and deliberate, like each syllable takes more effort than the last. His hands clutch his toy tighter as he continues. "But that's not true. I saw Daddy last week. He came to my soccer game. He told me he loved me. Mommy said he didn't care, but he did. He always cares." His words, simple yet devastating, shatter the narrative his mother had carefully woven throughout the entire case. The boy's recounting is heartbreaking in its clarity, the truth undeniable as he speaks from the raw honesty only a child can offer. Every eye in the courtroom is fixed on him now, and the room seems to hold its breath as the gravity of his testimony settles in. His voice cracks with emotion, but his gaze never wavers. He's telling the truth, and there's no turning back. A hushed gasp fills the room as the full weight of the boy's words sinks in. Even the judge, who had been listening intently throughout the proceedings, is visibly taken aback. His eyebrows furrow, his hand gripping the gavel as he processes the unexpected turn the case has just taken. There's a shift in the air, a palpable change in the dynamic of the entire trial. The lie that had been so carefully constructed begins to crumble before their very eyes. For a moment, the entire courtroom feels suspended in time. The boy's testimony hangs in the air, its impact immediate and undeniable. It's a simple truth, but it's one that unravels the web of deception that has been spun around him and his father. No amount of legal jargon or polished argument can mask the power of the truth that a 6-year-old has just revealed. The tension in the room thickens as people process the enormity of what has just happened. The mother, her face a mask of disbelief, is the first to react. She opens her mouth as though to speak, but the words falter. She stumbles over her thoughts, trying to find something, anything, to counter her son's testimony, but nothing comes. Her eyes dart nervously between the judge, the lawyers, and her son, the facade of control she'd maintained for so long, crumbling in real time. Her hands, once poised and controlled, now shake slightly. She tries to speak again, but her words are caught in her throat, her voice trembling with an emotion she can't quite mask. There is no defense against the truth. The boy's father, who has been silent up until now, watches with a mixture of disbelief and relief. His face softens, a weight lifting from his shoulders as his son speaks the truth. His eyes meet his son's, a moment of unspoken connection between them. It's a look of admiration, a look that acknowledges the bravery it took for his son to stand up to the woman who had tried to tear them apart. The father's relief is tempered by the sadness of the situation, the knowledge that his child has had to endure this turmoil, but also the understanding that this moment will forever change the course of their lives. The audience, who had once been passive observers, now reacts. Some look moved, their hands covering their mouths in shock, while others exchange looks of disbelief. The truth is out, and the room is filled with a sense of revelation. There are whispers, murmurs of surprise, and a few angry glances at the mother, now visibly crumbling under the weight of her own lies. Legal professionals exchange glances, their eyes wide with realization that the case has just shifted in a way no one could have anticipated. The lies that once seemed so carefully constructed have been exposed, and the case may very well be over. The atmosphere is thick with emotion. The boy's courage has shaken the courtroom to its very core, and in that one moment, the truth has become a force more powerful than any argument or legal strategy. The judge, visibly taken aback by the boy's testimony, leans forward, his gavel poised in his hand. The courtroom is silent, the weight of the truth still hanging heavily in the air. He clears his throat, breaking the silence, and calls for a brief recess. The tension in the room is thick as everyone processes what has just transpired. The boy's simple yet powerful declaration has completely shifted the direction of the case, and now the judge must decide how to proceed. The mother, her face pale and filled with disbelief, shifts uncomfortably in her seat. She looks down at her hands, clenched tightly in her lap, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The reality of her situation begins to set in. The facade she had so carefully maintained is no longer intact. The lies she had told to manipulate the situation have been exposed by the one person she least expected, her own son. The room watches her with a mixture of judgment and sympathy, but the truth has spoken, and there's no turning back. As the recess concludes, the judge returns to the bench, and the proceedings continue. But the dynamic has shifted. The mother's credibility has been irreparably damaged, and the boy's words have carried an undeniable weight. The judge listens intently as both legal teams prepare to present their final arguments. He carefully considers the testimony, particularly the boy's brave statement, which now holds significant power in determining the outcome of the case. After a few moments of deliberation, the judge finally speaks. His voice is firm, but there is a sense of finality in his tone. Given the testimony and the evidence before this court, it is clear that the accusations made by the mother cannot stand, he says. The best interests of the child are paramount, and it is clear that the environment provided by his father offers the stability and care that this child needs. A sense of relief washes over the boy's father as the judge rules in his favor, granting him primary custody of his son. There is no celebration, no cheers, but a quiet, profound sense of justice being served. The courtroom, once filled with tension, now feels like a place of resolution. The mother is left stunned, her plans undone by the courageous actions of her own child. The weight of her loss settles on her shoulders as she is led away, her hopes for custody shattered. In the aftermath, the boy and his father share a quiet moment together. The father looks at his son with deep gratitude, his eyes filled with admiration and love. He kneels beside him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, son," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." The boy looks up at his father, a small, shy smile breaking across his face. For the first time in a long while, he feels like a weight has been lifted from his chest. The burden of secrecy and fear has been replaced with a sense of pride. He may be young, but in that moment, he understands the power of truth and the strength it takes to speak it. As the father embraces him, the camera lingers on their quiet bond. This is a moment of healing, of rebuilding what had been broken by lies and manipulation. The boy's bravery has not only changed the outcome of the case, but it has begun the process of mending the fractured relationships within their family. In the final moments, the boy is acknowledged, not as a victim, but as a hero. The camera captures him standing tall beside his father, a symbol of integrity and courage. His bravery has saved the day, and his story serves as a reminder to everyone in the courtroom and beyond that even the smallest voice can bring about monumental change. His actions are a testament to the power of honesty, and the lesson he has taught will stay with him throughout his life. The boy, in his simple truth, has proven that no matter how young, each of us has the ability to stand up for what is right, to speak the truth, and to make a difference. The courtroom, once heavy with tension and uncertainty, now stood in the quiet aftermath of truth. What began as a battle of words, a war of accusations and counterclaims, had been overturned in an instant by the bravery of a young boy. His voice, small yet resolute, had shattered the lies that had been spun around him, forcing the courtroom to reckon with the truth they had been trying so desperately to hide. As the dust settled, the boy's father stood beside him, his eyes filled with gratitude, admiration, and a deep sense of pride. It was a victory not only for him, but for the boy who had done what no one else could. He had spoken up when it mattered most. The truth had won, and with it, a small boy had become the hero of the day. The boy's outburst, though born from a child's innocence, carried the weight of a life-changing revelation. His words had brought clarity, exposing the lies his mother had woven, and in doing so, they had set the course for a new beginning. The courtroom was no longer a place of uncertainty, but one where truth had triumphed. The boy had shown the world that no matter how small, the truth has a way of cutting through the noise, making its presence known in the most profound ways. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truth. The voiceover gently reminds us, as the camera lingers on the boy's face. There, in his wide eyes and slightly trembling lips, we see a glimpse of a future full of promise and integrity. He may have been small in stature, but in that courtroom, his courage was immeasurable. His bravery, simple, pure, and unwavering, reminds us that standing up for what is right does not require power or strength, but a commitment to honesty and justice. The camera fades to the father and son, walking side by side, their bond strengthened by this shared moment of courage. The boy's world had just been forever changed, but so too had the world around him. His actions rippled outward, touching those in the courtroom and beyond, inspiring everyone who witnessed his bravery to reflect on their own commitment to truth and justice. As the screen fades to black, the uplifting message appears. No matter how young, the truth has power, and when we stand by what is right, we change the world around us. This is the boy's legacy, one of honesty, bravery, and the profound impact of standing up for what is right, no matter the odds. If you were inspired by this brave boy's courage, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more stories of truth, justice, and the power of standing up for what's right. The narrator invites. The camera lingers for a moment longer on the young boy, his face now calm and proud. The hero of the story whose courage will stay with us long after the credits roll.